Balake. Where is Balake at?
My name's Blake.
Do you want to go to war, Balake? I'm for real. Ron.
Ron is right here. Thanks for joining me, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Leah Remini continues to drop bombs on Twitter. And what she has put out, I mean, literally, she put this out like as of recording this video, 29 minutes ago. She has released the letter that she asked the LAPD to deliver to Shelly Miscavige. This is back when she originally filed the missing persons report about Shelly Miscavige on August 5th, 2013. And this letter and Leah asking the LAPD to confirm for her, either confirm or deny, whether the LAPD ever gave this letter to Shelly Miscavige. The fact that the LAPD has refused all of these years to even answer that one simple question is honestly why this Shelly Miscavige thing has continued to be headline news all over the world for the last 9 years. And it's why this suspicion of corruption in the Hollywood division of the LAPD, and perhaps even in other areas of the LAPD. I mean, I realize the LAPD's had a bit of a reputation for a very long time, but I'm referring specifically to the Scientology issue, the Shelly Miscavige issue. There seems to be conflicting info coming from the LAPD, whether it was in fact the Hollywood division or not that handled the Shelly Miscavige missing persons case. But the fact is, when Leah Remini filed her missing persons report back in 2013, getting this letter that she has just finally released for the first time, I believe, I've never seen this before. Getting this letter to Shelly was actually what she was trying to accomplish. So here is the letter. Here is what Leah Remini published to Twitter. When I filed a missing persons report on Shelly Miscavige with the LAPD, I handed the detective this letter to give to her. I still have no idea if this letter ended up in her hands. I'm not going to stop fighting for my friend who hasn't been seen in public in over 15 years. Guys, the LAPD won't even tell Leah, no, we didn't give her the letter. And guys, I'm looking for some input from you law enforcement professionals out there, current, former, whatever. Does it make any sense how the LAPD has conducted itself in relation to Leah Remini? Like, I understand Leah Remini as a non-family member may not have standing to be given the exact specifics on what happened in this wellness check. I mean, it's been explained to me by other law enforcement professionals that this is probably a reality, that she doesn't have standing legally to be kept in the loop. But I'm talking about something as small as just telling Leah, we didn't give her the letter because it's not part of our standard procedure. It's not part of a wellness check. We're not messengers, and I'm sorry, it wasn't part of the process. Is there something weird or wrong or suspicious about the fact that they won't even tell her that? Or is there another explanation? Please let me know in the comments down below, guys. Here's the actual letter. Dear Shelly, it is not normal for you to be so out of communication. It is not normal for you to not be with your husband at the wedding. She was referring to Tom Cruise's wedding, of which Shelly was famously absent. For years, I've been trying to get confirmation that you were okay. I was met with such resistance that it has caused me enough concern to go to extreme measures to make sure you were in fact okay. My letters were not sent to you, and I was told that I did not have the effing rank to ask about Shelly. That is not human. Shelly, this is not right. I do not care what you think you are doing. This is not LRH. That would be not according to what LRH believed would be right. And you need to do something about it. You need to go with this gentleman now. I will take care of you. I will give you a home and the protection you need. From there, you can do what you need to do, but you need to leave right now. Do not worry about clothes, money, lawyers, and what this will do. This will all get worked out later. All you need to say to this person who has come to get you is, I want to leave with you now. If you don't do it now, you probably won't have another chance to get out. So I beg you to take this step for you. It is the right thing to do, Leah. So that is very interesting. And I have a lot of thoughts about such a letter and whether the police would be willing or even be allowed to have given this letter to Shelly. One of my first thoughts is that the tone and the thrust of this letter is not necessarily in alignment with what the purpose of the police would be in conducting a wellness check, right? It's almost like the letter takes a much different tone and makes assumptions that the police themselves wouldn't professionally make in the course of carrying out a wellness check. The police are trying to verify that this person is indeed alive. They are okay. They don't seem to be in distress or require any help. And, you know, I guess the police have their own procedures on how to determine these things, and they've got to stick to their procedures. The letter, on the other hand, makes an assumption that she's not okay, not there according to her own will, does need intervention from outside parties. And I truly wonder if the police would, procedurally speaking, be overstepping their authority under the law by delivering a communication like this that in some senses is actually like an instruction, an order, and whether that would actually constitute a violation of the LAPD's own rules or the police's own guidelines on how to conduct these things. Like, if they had given this letter to Shelly, would that actually have given grounds for Scientology or Shelly to actually sue the LAPD for harassment or interference? Again, I'm completely speculating here. I really want to know what you law enforcement professionals think about this. And now that we see this letter, it makes more sense that Leah was so intent on finding out from the LAPD not only whether they laid eyes on Shelly and met with her, but whether they met with her alone. Because if they're meeting with Shelly in the presence of someone else, and now last week the LAPD came out and said an attorney was present, they're not going. The conversation is going to go much differently. And look, part of this letter says you need to go with this gentleman now. But you see, the police can't say that to Shelly Miscavige. And that's why I'm wondering, if they handed Shelly this letter from Leah, is that not tantamount to the police themselves telling Shelly, you need to leave with this gentleman now? You guys get what I'm saying here, right? So I can understand, I mean, it's very easy to understand that how Leah has concern for Shelly because she hadn't seen her or spoken to her in 8 years at this point. And I've covered this in some of my earlier videos, that the dynamics of marriages, couples, personnel, relationships at the highest levels of Scientology, Sea organization, bear really no similarity or resemblance to anything you could consider normal in the outside world. So, like, for example, being married or being someone's spouse in the Sea Org means absolutely nothing. Like David Miscavige being a public figure, whoever he's married to, Shelly, if it weren't Shelly, like let's say he divorced Shelly and remarried, whoever he married would not be a public figure in Scientology just because they're married to David Miscavige. Like in Shelly Miscavige's case, her post was that she was David Miscavige's assistant. That was her literal job. She traveled with Miscavige because she was his assistant, not because she was his wife. So, and that's true for anyone in the Sea organization. Like married couples sometimes are fortunate if they're even posted at the same organization or in the same country or in the same continent. If you're a Sea Org official, even someone other than Miscavige, although there's hardly any of them left these days, and you go to some event, you don't bring your wife. Your wife's on some other job and they're working. It's true. That's spousal relationships in the Sea Org are just crazy compared to anything anyone would usually consider normal. And I'm mentioning that here because it's been discussed endlessly over the years, but Shelly Miscavige, David Miscavige removed her from her post as his assistant and had her reposted to an even more remote, even more confidential Sea Org base. It'd be kind of like in the military, it would be the equivalent of, you know, sometimes you see this in the movies. Some member of the military is being ordered to do something, doesn't want to do it. The senior officer is like, do it, or tomorrow I'll have you posted in like manning a watchtower in the Arctic or something like that, where you're still doing your job, you're still a member of the military, but you're being banished in a sense. That's kind of like what's happened with Shelly. She's been reposted to one of these extremely remote confidential bases that in any other context or setting would be considered a very high rank, a very high post in Scientology. Sea Org members, it's very hard for any Sea Org member to get promoted up to the level where they would be working at the base that Shelly's working at. So in her context, it's probably it's a punishment that she was removed from her post. It's sort of a slap in the face, if you will, that she's been banished to this base that only has maybe a dozen or 2 dozen staff members working at it. But the fact that she has dropped out of public view and is not reachable by the public at all in the Sea Org context is much less crazy, much more understandable than it seems at first glance to the outside world. Because we hear like the wife of David Miscavige has not been seen in 15 years. Nobody would have ever seen her ever if she had not been his assistant. That's just kind of the really strange nature of the Sea Org management at the highest echelons of Scientology. That's life on these confidential bases. I could name you a dozen other people who haven't been seen in 15 years. Nobody really gives a shit because they're not David Miscavige's spouse. So it is really interesting to see this letter. I think it's amazing that Leah has made it public. And I think it's, I don't always know exactly what to think about this. In some ways, I think Miscavige is trolling Leah by refusing to release some sort of Scientology promotional video that happens to show Shelly in it. Like to some respects, I think that's what's happening. But in other respects, I go, Miscavige has to be kind of insane to, after all these years, not somehow do something with Shelly that would make Leah look bad or embarrass her or make it seem like Leah's been making a big deal about nothing all these years. Like, it is very hard to explain that. It really is. And how I have explained it is Miscavige is really trolling Leah, and people go, well, why would Miscavige want the world talking about his wife being missing? And I go, Miscavige doesn't care what the world talks about. And people in Scientology don't know who Shelly Miscavige is. I was in Scientology for 30 years. I saw Shelly Miscavige once. When I saw her, I didn't even know it was her. Shelly Miscavige is not someone who's ever addressed Scientology. She's not a public figure in the way that her husband David is. She's never addressed Scientology. The only reason Leah knew Shelly Miscavige is because as a celebrity, she would hobnob with the Scientology executives at some of these events, and that's how she met Shelly. As a Sea Org member, I mean, I spent about 15 years as a staff member and a Sea Org member working for Scientology. I could not have picked Shelly Miscavige out of a lineup. I had no idea who she was. She had nothing to do with Scientology management. Do you see what I mean? So there's different people have different experiences. If you worked at the International Scientology base, you had one experience with Shelly. If you were a celebrity, you had another experience with Shelly. If you were a rank and file Scientology staff member, you had no experience with Shelly. So it'll be really fascinating to see if publishing this letter does somehow prompt a response from Miscavige. And how cool would it be if it does? How cool would it be if we finally had, visual proof of life and health of Shelly Miscavige? That would be pretty awesome. All right, that's all I got on this for now, guys. Thank you for watching and listening. Thank you to everyone who watches until the very end, and I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, if you want to see my rock and roll songs, click right on this guitar. And if you want to see a different one of my videos, then you could click right inside here. If you have subscribed or not, subscribe right here. Bye.